everyone. I'm Melissa McAllister, and you're listening to the Melissa M.A.D.E Show. Now, for decades, I've dedicated myself to helping women break the cycle of dieting, navigate through all the fads, and change their lives through my nutrition coaching. Now, each week, I'm going to talk about everything from deep nutrition, mindset, self-care, the ideal workout routine, tips on how and why to implement intermittent fasting in your life, my favorite recipes that are not only crowd pleasers, but they're actually healthy for you, and so much more. Now, with small and consistent changes, you can defy aging while living a happier, healthier, and more heart-filled life. I'm so excited to show you it's possible with the right strategies that are so simple to adopt. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Melissa M.A.D.E Show. So today we have a guest that I feel like is me, if that's a thing. You know, when I'm about to read her bio, and you'll be like, "Are you reading your own bio?" At least in the beginning, because we seem to have a lot of things in common. But she is a little ball of energy, and I always talk to my guests before we push the record button, and I've already started just enjoying talking with her. She's just the kind of gal that you could sit next to. And in her little bio that she sent me, she's sitting on a chair drinking a glass of wine. So of course, her and I would get along, but I want to give her a proper introduction, and then we're going to go ahead and get this going, because I think you're going to get a lot of value out of this. If you are obviously somebody, you follow me, that wants to improve or maintain health, but also has an entrepreneurial spirit. So we're going to dig into both of those topics, but let me give her this great introduction first. All right, you guys. So Jenn Trepeck is an optimal health coach, fellow podcaster, and business consultant. So she is the one in the family that grew up skinny. And she says that was wonderful until it went away. How many of you guys can relate to that? And so began her weight management saga. Ultimately, though, Jenn learned the nutrition education we're all supposed to know, but no one ever taught us. Does that raise an eyebrow for you? This completely changed her life and allowed her to say she kicked her food issues. From then, Jenn set out on a mission to pay it forward and help people help themselves. I love that. After over a decade of working with clients, Jenn started Salad with a Side of Fries podcast. Could that not be more perfect? Based on science, yet lighthearted, Jenn talks about living life while still making ourselves and our health a priority. And so, Jenn, thank you first and foremost for being on here. I'm really, really excited to kind of just dig into, number one, hearing about your journey of, finding health and digging into that, but also taking that. And now you also help women, and maybe possibly men as well, on that entrepreneurial path. But let's first start off by hearing a little bit about this journey of being the skinny kid. I was a skinny kid too. My nickname was Crab Legs. One of my many nicknames was Crab, because I was a little beanpole when I was little. And I did okay until, put on a little bit of weight after having children. But it sounds to me like you were the skinny kid until you weren't. And you had to find something to, you had to figure it out. So what was maybe the aha moment for you when you were like, okay, I'm not the skinny kid anymore. Something's not working for me. I need to make a change.
Well, so first of all, thank you for having me. I'm excited to chat.
Yay.
So I grew up a dancer. And so I was probably more than the average, very aware of my body and where my body is in space and, those kinds of things. The other thing is, my parents were divorced and we lived with my dad, which is pretty unusual. But so one of the activities that we would do with my mom would pick us up, my sister and I, and we would go shopping. That was the thing we would do.
Okay.
And there's a reason for all this, I promise. So we would go shopping, and I was the kid where everything looked good on me. I had to weed things out. Then I started to gain weight really between high school and college. And I was heading into my senior year of college. I was in the business school And so these companies would come to recruit us.
Mm.
And maybe it's my junior year. Companies would come to recruit us. We had all these kinds of like business events and networking events and dinners and things like that. So I needed business casual clothing. So my sister, my mom, and I are at a store. And I just remember I couldn't find anything look good on me.
Mm.
It was, like, I just remember then finally one thing was like, okay, maybe this. And then I saw what size it was. And I just broke down in tears. It was like, this isn't me. Like, I don't even know who this person is, and that was even a couple years into dieting.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So when I first started to gain weight between high school and college, I was like, all right, I know what to do. I watched my family do this my whole life. Right.
Yep.
I tried every diet under the sun, gained and lost over and over. And really all that experience in the dressing room did was make me want to diet more, right? Or really focus on this thing. And, fast forward, I call it a saga because I feel like the word journey just doesn't do it justice. Like, there was drama and it was a merry-go-round and a roller coaster and all the things,
Yeah.
So ultimately, I learned about the curriculum that I now teach. And at first I was like, no, that's okay. I've got my thing, right? My thing was that craziness, but I didn't need whatever they had.
Sure. One more thing.
Right. Like I thought I had all the answers. So I saw people though, who were following this program. And I noticed two things. One was that they were all these people were keeping the weight off.
Key.
And the second thing was this woman was telling her story. P.S. If you are out there, please contact me. Like, I don't know who you are or where you are. Like, you changed my life, this lady. So she's telling her story. She removed 150 pounds from her body.
Wow.
Right. And the piece that I couldn't wrap my head around was because I was looking at her and I couldn't see where 10 pounds could have been on this woman.
Wow.
Right. And my brain was like, this doesn't make sense. Like, you're telling me that the equivalent of another human was attached to you,
Mm-hmm.
And so I had a moment with myself that was like, Jennifer, right? Like, they know something you don't know because that does not make sense given what you know. And I was like, get out of your own way and find out what that is. So I worked with a coach. I followed the program, completely changed my life. Like the only thing, like you said, that's allowed me to say I've kicked my food issues. And I really believe it is the nutrition education we're all supposed to know and no one ever taught us. So I was in that moment, I was like, everybody deserves to know this. Everyone needs this information. And also, why isn't this what we learned? Like, how did all those things come to be? So I started working with clients on the side of my full-time job and really became an insatiable student, like read every book I could get my hands on, went to every seminar and workshop and all these things to really understand, because it was a combination of not just what do we want to know, but also how did all these other things come to be? So that was late 2007, which was before side hustles were a thing. I was like, doing this side hustle thing. And my friends were like, why can't you just come to the bar? And I was like, I'm busy, And so fast forward, I built my business on the side for almost 12 years.
Wow.
So July of 2019, left my full-time job, launched my podcast, Salad with a Side of Fries, in August of 2019. And now I'm here sitting with you.
Yay. Fantastic. Yeah. And you know what? You have done such a good job. I, without a shadow of a doubt, I can see people, they're driving in their car, they're gripping their steering wheel and they're at the edge of their car seat, or if they're, sitting at their desk, they're just like, okay, Jen, keep going. Tell us more.
Well, thank you.
What is it? Yeah. So that was beautiful. Cause it's just, I have an idea, but I, would love for you to keep going and tell them, what it is that, and, I'm not going to get on my soapbox, but we really know why people aren't taught certain things when it comes to, we know why. And, it's people like you, it's people like me who really do the research and do the science and live the life to be able to share things like this, because, it comes from a place of passion and empathy and wanting to really help people out there who are doing the proverbial dieting and trying everything out there to not have success. So keep going.
Thank you. Yeah. So, I mean, I think, I don't know where where you want to go next. But I think, fundamentally, we're all told, and every diet out there is some version of eat less, move more.
Yep.
And really, it's actually not how the body works.
Nope.
I say to people sometimes, like you could eat 2,000 calories a day of Skittles, or you could eat 2,000 calories a day of broccoli. First of all, don't recommend either one of those. Like, don't do either of those. Right. But you don't need to be a doctor or a biologist or a nutritionist to understand that your body is going to function very differently in those two things.
Absolutely.
Right. Whether it's broccoli or Skittles.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not calories in, calories out. Mm-hmm. Right. It is. So for anybody, like if you're a note taker, write this down. So eliminate calories in, calories out. It is quality in, quality out. Get up and move more. Right. We got to build muscle. Muscle dictates metabolism. Write that down too. Muscle dictates metabolism. So we got to build muscle so that we are always burning more, even when we're sitting at the desk working or on the couch watching TV, whatever it is. But it's about the quality of the food that we give ourselves that really makes a difference.
Yeah, for sure. And so for you, and I will just, earlier today, I had a woman reach out to me, just frustrated with her thyroid and asking, she, and I get this constantly. I eat healthy, and I'm doing that in quotations, not to be disrespectful, but in the 20 plus years that I've studied nutrition, one person's version of healthy is completely different than another person's version of healthy. And that's what I told her. I said, I am not pinpointing you on this. I said, but in all of the clients that I've worked with, there is somebody's version of healthy is different than another. And one thing I will not do is be generic and assume that you are eating healthy. And it has to be something else. So I always tell people, I said, I need a snapshot, an honest, no judgment snapshot of what you eat. And then we can go from there, because I'm not going to assume that you know what healthy is. So, can you, share a little bit, whether it's kind of the guidelines you live by, or, what you consider, a healthy diet versus, maybe what the food pyramid considers a healthy diet.
Yeah. All right. Well, so hold on. Backing up to the food pyramid before I go into what I typically recommend. The food pyramid, by the way, was based on economics, not nutrition or biology or science, right? It was about getting us to eat what we grow in this country. We grow corn and wheat and now soy. So the whole idea of grains being the biggest thing in our nutrition plan based on that food pyramid, right, has nothing to do with your nutrition and everything to do with getting you to eat what we grow. Yeah. So throw all that out, right? Similarly, calcium from dairy. Thanks, dairy lobby. Calcium is actually much better for us from dark leafy greens than from dairy. Also, so humans make an enzyme naturally called lactase reductase, right? That allows us to process lactose. We naturally drink milk as a baby, right? And as we start to have food, we drink less and less milk. Naturally, by around, give or take, age 7-ish, the human body no longer naturally produces lactase reductase because we're supposed to stop drinking milk. Yeah. Right. We're also the only species of animal that drinks the milk of another species. Yeah. Like when you start to think of us as animals, all of a sudden, like that's weird. Yeah. Yeah. And not to say like some people, the dairy doesn't bother them. Fine. And it could be that somebody is more bothered by the kind of protein that's in the milk than the sugar that's
Right.
in the milk or things like that. So there's a lot of things at play here. And I say these things to say we don't necessarily want to take any plan or theory or whatever as gospel, right?
True.
Because you know your body best. You know what makes you feel good. You know when you are firing on all cylinders. Like, no matter what you learn, process it through the filter of what I know works for me and what makes my body feel best.
Yeah, for sure.
So having said that, one of the things I teach everybody, and my specialty is weight management. So again, depending on our goals, we have different approaches to, shifts and different balances between things. But a phrase I teach everybody is protein and fiber at every meal makes you moving fat, no big deal. Protein and fiber at every meal makes you moving fat, no big deal. So protein is clean, lean protein. I don't care if you want that to be animal or plant or whatever, clean, lean protein.
Okay.
Fiber is vegetables and sometimes fruit. The other thing we need is quality fat a couple times a day. And one day I'm going to figure out how to get the fat into that sentence. But right. Quality fat. And by the way, a serving of quality fat, like a serving of avocado, is half the avocado, not the I had an eighth of a quarter of a sliver, like
I know.
the whole thing of, you've done an episode on, fat and all that kind of stuff. So you guys know, but it's that kind of stuff where we hear these things, it plants the seed in the back of our mind, and then it starts to cloud all this other behavior.
Absolutely.
I mean, even in reading labels. So I do a whole thing on, how to read labels and stuff, but similar to the food pyramid and, the dairy thing, that percent daily value, that's the percent daily value that a human needs to not deteriorate into rickets and scurvy.
Yeah.
Because it was designed during war, and it was, how do we feed our military just enough that they don't have issues from malnutrition, not about how can we be well?
Yeah.
How can we be free of symptoms, illness, and disease?
Yeah. And that's why I love that you put you're an optimized health coach, because there's a difference between obviously surviving and thriving. And we are barely surviving right now. And just going back to we may think we're living healthy because of what the news is telling us, or what our favorite influencer is telling us, or what a magazine is telling us. We believe that's healthy because there's just really no true science to back that up. And it's funny, my daughter is a nutritionist as well, and she sent me a screenshot of a post that someone put. I wish that I could put it up, that it clearly states milk is more hydrating than water. And she was just blown away by that. But that is the kind of information that is put out there. And an unassuming person, who maybe trusts that person, will be like, oh, okay, I need to replace all my water with milk. And, how well is that going to serve that person? So that's really.
Now, it's one of those things where sort of we can talk about some of the red flags when we hear things on social media or whatever it is. But I also approach this from how might this be true? Right?
Okay.
So hydration is more than water. Proper hydration in the body requires replenishing minerals and electrolytes, right? Electrolytes are these minerals that our body needs. So I could see a study saying that milk is more hydrating than water because there are vitamins and minerals added to that milk that are not necessarily added to your water.
True.
Having said that, right, that doesn't necessarily mean that we want to replace all our water with milk. So it's part of, like you were saying before, there's people like us that are going to do that extra research, and the average person isn't, right? But so one thing that I tell everybody is when you hear these things, how does that make sense given the information that you know to be true based on your body and what you already know about nutrition and wellness and all those kinds of things. Because most of us fundamentally, we kind of know.
Yeah.
So like, don't lose your common sense.
Right.
And evaluate it from saying, okay, I have this foundation of knowledge. How does that make sense with this? And then there are some giant red flags, right? When they say, oh, you're only going to hear this from me. Everybody else is lying to you. Like, to me, that's a giant red flag. Right. If it was the absolute best thing for our health, more than just one person would be talking about it.
Yeah.
More than just 2 or 3 people would be talking about it. We want to make sure that there are multiple studies, that it's actually, who funded that research. And not to say that everybody's going to go do all the science and dig and whatever, but, looking at everything with a little bit of a critical eye to say, even like, I remember you were talking about like lectins and stuff like that on an episode, and anti-nutrients, right? So yes, you were talking about, one piece of that is when food is ripe, those things are no longer there.
Yeah.
The other side of that is, a lot of foods that have these, in air quotes, anti-nutrients, those go away when you soak them or cook them or things. So it's not that by the time you're eating it, it has those same things. So right. It's, we want to sort of look at the whole story, yes. Which a lot of times when it's so sensational, it's a little bit of a red flag, but like, maybe that's not the whole story.
Yeah, no, that's very well said. And I'm always, number one, I'm glad that you said that, because that was on the tip of my tongue, is to always, when you see a study or someone cites a study, don't be afraid to ask for the source. And maybe it doesn't take much effort to actually look if there's funding for that study, because that is a tall tale of whether or not, because there are a lot of, say, for instance, if they say that chocolate cures cancer, you might see that it's sponsored by Nestle. I mean, right. That could happen. Right. So, just that's probably the quickest way to legitimize a study, is to make sure that it's not funded by somebody who would benefit from that study, because that happens more often than we care to think. And that's one of the first things that I always look at is, who's funding this, and is it worth reading, because there might be an ulterior motive to it. And so I totally agree with that. And you mentioned fat, and I think we have this, this still to this day, this huge fat phobia that is, especially in the older populations, because we were so ingrained that fat is bad.
Oh yeah. I grew up, it was all low fat, no fat, right? Absolutely. Snackwell's generation. Totally.
Absolutely. I always tell the story of my mother-in-law who lost 100 pounds. And she would eat a loaf of fat-free bread for lunch. And that was it. Just a white loaf of fat, just this little, she would get from the grocery store. And she lost 100 pounds, but guess what? She put it all back on.
Right. Well, so, but that brings up a really interesting thing that I also say to everybody, is that any diet will work.
Sure.
Any diet will work. The questions that I always ask are twofold. One is, how long-term is it?
Yeah.
Right. So she gained it back. Yeah. The second is, how healthful is it? Because a lot of times when we do those things and the plans that, those things, we all know them, we've done them, right? I did every single one. Like, there isn't a diet out there that I haven't done, my family hasn't done, or we don't know somebody who's done it, but when we follow those typical plans, we see the number in the scale go down.
Right.
Then it stops. We get frustrated. We go back to old eating habits. The number on the scale starts to creep back up. When the number goes down, if we look at body composition, what we're losing is water and muscle. Then when we go back to those old eating habits, remember we said before, muscle's metabolically active. We go back to those old eating habits. We have less muscle on our body to burn that extra fuel. We gain the weight back as fat. So even if we end up at the same number on the scale as we were before, by body composition, we are fatter at that same number. So over and over in that yo-yoing that we've all done, right? We lose it as water and muscle, gain it back as fat. lose it as water and muscle, gain it back as fat. So when we consider a plan, how long-term is it? How healthful is it?
Right. Absolutely. And so question for you is,
Mhm.
Obviously it's not just about counting calories, and being more whole food based is really important, and strength training. I'm gathering, and
Yes.
just being an active person in general. So you also, in your little bio, I have two questions for you. I don't know if they go hand in hand, but like I said, you're sitting there with a big old grin on your face, holding a glass of red wine. It is red wine, I believe. And it's you mentioned the truth about alcohol and your health, and then you also talk about burning fat for fuel without being in the very popular word right now, keto. So I know they're two different topics, but I think they're kind of related. How you feel about alcohol and your health, but you're holding a glass of wine. So I'm being very optimistic, and then also how to burn fat, to burn that fat for fuel.
Yeah. So I'll do the wine thing first because, listen, we get healthier each day. We keep alcohol away. Bottom line. Having said that, we're human.
Yeah.
And it is very much a part of many of our lives. And it is, for many of us, a very social piece. For some people, it is part of their stress relief. For some people, right? So prefacing this whole thing by saying, if you have a challenge with alcohol, please contact somebody, right? Like, we want to make sure that it has its place in the grand scheme of things.
Sure.
But when it comes to our weight specifically, we've been told alcohol is empty calories, right? And we should be careful of all of the extra sugar and things in our mixers. Yes, both of those things are true. Yes. Having said that, it doesn't mean that we're in the clear if we're drinking straight liquor.
True.
Right? It also doesn't mean if we're drinking straight liquor with some water or club soda.
Yep.
So the truth about alcohol is that it is about our liver. Okay. So our liver, major job of the liver is detoxification.
It's a busy organ.
Right? Very busy. However, the liver is certainly not a woman, because the liver does not know how to multitask. The liver can only do one thing at a time.
Prioritizes.
Exactly. So the liver can only tackle one thing at a time. It prioritizes based on that which is the most toxic, right? So the liver has to process the alcohol, our food, right? Fat and sugar and all of these things. But in the scheme of where the priority is, right? In terms of what's most toxic and least toxic, alcohol, most toxic, right? They call it intoxicated for a reason, right? Alcohol is the most toxic. Sugar, toxic. Fat, not so toxic. Our body is supposed to know what to do with fat. Now, again, it depends what kind of fat and all those kinds of things. But for argument's sake today, right? When we talk about the liver, fat is not so toxic. So it's sort of the bottom of that totem pole. So until we process whatever liquor out of our system, our body cannot address any of the food that we've eaten. So it's not so much about what's in the alcohol. It's not even so much about what we eat once we've had a few drinks. It's that we have basically commandeered our liver to focus on the alcohol instead of anything else until that alcohol is out of our system. So it becomes a function of how do we balance the alcohol with the rest of our food choices, right? With, other things that we're eating in a day before and after the alcohol, with our activity, with potentially herbs and some things that can support the liver, right? We have a lot of options, but it's about really sort of taking care of ourselves to say, how much are we taxing the liver? Can it handle the alcohol that I'm having?
I love that. I think for a lot of people, that was probably an aha moment to understand that, your liver does
a lot
of jobs. but what is most important, and that's to keep you safe and healthy. And so it will prioritize whatever is going to keep you from being safe and healthy. And so I just got back from Champagne, France 2 days ago, where I drank probably my body weight in champagne. And that's not like me. I'm not a big,
Yeah.
but when in Rome, what are you going to do? We went to all these champagne houses and did all these tastings, and it was wonderful. But I can feel it, I can feel it. I can feel it in my body temperature. My body temperature has risen as I know my poor liver has been overworked, and it's trying to detoxify me from all of that alcohol. And so if you really pay attention to those kind of cues, if your body awareness is there, you do realize that, that alcohol, even though the resveratrol and red wine can be good for you. And we hear all of that.
But also, like, even resveratrol, like if you're going to get the health benefits of resveratrol, like you have to drink cases and cases of wine to get a quantity of resveratrol that's going to do something.
Yes.
I take a resveratrol supplement every day.
It's good for us.
By the way, resveratrol is excellent for blood sugar also. But so, but it's one of those things where pros and cons, and keep the balance. And we might say, the sleep that we get after alcohol is not restorative, restful sleep. They call it passed out for a reason, right? Like, when we think about sort of the snowball of, it's not just those calories.
Yeah. It's really not. It's not necessarily an exchange of. So I always tell people, like, if you're going out to eat and you're really trying to stay, as close to on point as you can, there's the bread basket, there's your meal, there's dessert, and there's alcohol. And what you really want to do is just kind of weigh your options and think to yourself, you really shouldn't have all four. Let's be realistic. You shouldn't devour the bread basket, have a full meal, have a full dessert, and have a few drinks. Try to, prioritize what's most important to you. And some days it will be that glass of red wine with the steak. Other times you'll be like, I'm fine without the alcohol. I'm going to share a dessert with my girlfriend, and to try to prioritize, which one is for you. But keep in mind too, that the bread basket probably won't disrupt your sleep near as much as the alcohol will. So if you have to wake up the next day raring to go, you've got to think about how each one impacts you separately, as opposed to just being calories, because we look at everything as calories. And sometimes something will affect you more or less outside of the equal calories. And you have to weigh that in order to make the best decision for yourself.
Absolutely. And we think about too, essentially our metabolic health, and this actually goes to burning fat as fuel. Our metabolic health is a function of blood sugar. Whether we are burning or storing fat is a function of blood sugar. Starting your meal with the bread basket spikes your blood sugar, puts us into a fat storage level of blood sugar, which means that we then, maybe we even order that picture perfect steamed fish and vegetables as our entree. Right? Your body's storing it as fat because you started with the bread basket. Doesn't mean don't have the bread ever.
Yes.
But when we start with the bread basket versus eating a salad, eating some vegetable soup, having something else, and then having a little bit of bread, something else being protein, fiber, right? Quality fat.
Absolutely.
And then having a bit of the bread, we're in a much better place metabolically. And with dessert, so thinking about, holidays, right? The barbecue, the holiday, whatever is happening, or even just dinner out with friends, we are much better off having dessert immediately after the meal.
Yes.
Than waiting a couple hours and having it later, where it's sort of sugar bombing your body separately. If we have it right after, not only are we likely to eat less of it because we've just been eating, but it's also then processed in your system with the rest of the nutrition from that meal, rather than by itself, again, spiking your blood sugar.
Yeah, for sure. And that's, for those of you watching the YouTube video, you saw, but I pointed to the CGM that I'm wearing to Jen, because I've just been wearing, I've worn them before because I do it relatively.
I'm more of a curiosity thing. Yes. Very familiar. Yeah.
mind blowing. But one thing that I'm really playing with is the effects of having different, maybe carbohydrates by themselves or having them first versus trying to put protein first and or fat first. What a ginormous difference it makes in the stability of your glucose levels. And then even to do a little, exercising afterwards. If you sit and you have this glorious meal that has all the things, get up and go walk around the block. It's going to make
1,000%. There are a few things
difference
that do more immediately for your blood sugar than walking. Doesn't have to be a big walk.
Yeah.
10 minutes.
Yeah.
I don't care. Oh, my neighborhood is too cold. My neighborhood is unsafe. My neighborhood, walk around your couch. I don't care. Just walk a little bit,
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. Well, you are, obviously love your train of thought. And I can see where you have been able to figure out how to live a sustainable lifestyle, really by just taking, and I hate to say this, but it's what I preach all the time, just really taking, like what you said, common sense, and to take the approach of, not the world that we live in today necessarily with the 24/7 drive-throughs and convenience stores and the refrigerator in your house and all the foods that are made in a factory instead of, grown in a farm, and living that lifestyle, gives you a sustainable, healthy lifestyle. And I appreciate all of your insight. I even had a couple of, I love the way she said that. I love the way
thanks.
Yeah, that was, I really enjoyed that. But I do want to switch gears a little bit because, not only do I have a huge following for fitness and nutrition, but I assume I have a lot of entrepreneurs that listen as well, and would love, number one, and this could be in the health, for me, it's the health and fitness space, because I hear this all the time that it's oversaturated, that, everybody I know is, on social media is a health and fitness coach, or, a personal trainer, or, a life coach or anything like that. And number one, it's usually because social media tries to help you find people like you. So it looks like everybody and their dog does what you do. But how do you find your niche in a world where you feel like everybody is doing the same thing that you want to do?
I love this question. So finding your niche it is a process, and it is an evolution, and it can change over time, right? So just because today you figure something out does not mean that it's going to stay that way for forever.
Yeah.
So especially in the wellness space, it most often follows our own story, right? So what was our process? What was our journey? Although I hate that word, right?
Saga.
And right. And that's typically where we find, our space in a, in air quotes, crowded industry.
Sure.
The other side of that is, think about the clients that you love working with.
Mm-hmm.
Like, which ones are the most fun? Which ones do you have the best time? Which ones can you not wait to talk to them? What do all those clients have in common? Maybe it's about what they do in the world. Maybe it's about the way they approach the work that they do with you. Maybe it's, the goal that they're after. Maybe it's they're at a certain place in their lives. Find the commonality between the clients that you have the best time with. And then as far as social media, 2% of people on social media are actually making their income from people who find them on social media. I mean, like, at the risk of saying ignore it, ignore it, like, think about social media more in terms of having a presence. I think when people might hear your name or referred to you, they go to social media before they go to your website.
Yep.
Or they go to your website to find your social media accounts, right? So think about it more in terms of the brand than the fact that you're really trying to use social media to find your ideal client, or to say, oh, I need to find my niche between these other, in air quotes, influencers on social media.
Right. Right. I think that's such good advice. And I can attest to that because, being a nutritionist and being in the health and fitness industry for over 2 decades, I found myself, because I know it's important to literally speak to your audience, that you want to be, want to be not precise, but you want to be specific with the type of people that you want to work with. But I found myself getting so specific that I was almost reaching out to people that were really sick, really sick. And, in my scope of practice, I don't work with the really sick. That needs to, you need to go to your doctor and be closely monitored by a doctor. But I was just realizing that, wow, I'm just getting a bunch of people who have illness, and so my messaging must be that I'm sympathetic to them and I want to help those that are ill when it's not in my scope of practice. So I had to kind of pull back and be like, wait a minute, Melissa, you need to make sure that you are speaking to the people that you want to work with, the people that you enjoy working with. And so that, even if you've been in the business, any business for any length of time, and you feel like you've reached everybody you can, or that, your demographic is exhausted, maybe think about how you're speaking to that audience, because it might be your verbiage that is pulling those people in instead of it being saturated, or, there's no more people that you want to help or out there.
Listen, if this wasn't needed, there wouldn't be so many people in this space.
Yes.
And the reality is there are so many people who need this information. And in order for it to be effective, it needs to come through a coach or a facilitator or somebody who they resonate with.
Right.
So not everybody is everybody's client. And so it's really about finding the people that resonate with you and that you resonate with, to have those conversations, because just because a practitioner exists doesn't mean that they can help every person on the planet.
Right.
And I mean, I always say the mission of everything I do in a variety of wellness businesses is to change the state of healthcare. And so if I help a few and the next person helps a few and a doctor helps a whole lot, hopefully, depending, right, when we work with them in wellness practices, right, then we can make a real ripple effect. So if what you do is help one person, that's amazing and worth it. Because who else is that person going to help? And that's where this becomes so much bigger than any one of us.
Yeah, that is so profound, and something, because you have people that come in having great success in something and then feeling unqualified to help somebody else when they've just walked that journey. And I always tell them it really literally takes you being even a day ahead of somebody to say, oh, I've been there. I was there yesterday. Let me help you through your today, because it was my yesterday. And by doing that, you give them confidence, you give them support. You may not be the most educated person on the planet, but sometimes more than education, people just need that support, and they need that accountability, and they need that friendship. And that's where it can start with someone who feels very new, maybe to a business or something like that, and being able to help just that one person, like you said, which that one person could help thousands of people. And because of you, they were able to help thousands of people.
Exactly.
And that's wonderful. So I love that. So I have had a tremendous time talking to you, and I would love for my following to know all the places besides Salad with a Side of Fries. Genius. I love that name. Besides finding your podcast, which obviously I highly recommend you guys check that out. But where else can they find you? Which I assume social media is one of those places, even though we're supposed to forget it.
No, of course. So podcast is Salad with a Side of Fries. So wherever you listen to podcasts, it's there. All social media, I'm at Jenn Trepeck, JENNTREPECK. Website is A Salad with a Side of Fries. Whatever platform, website, any social media, send me a message. What resonated with you? What questions do you have? I love nothing more than hearing from you. So please, that's my request, is send me a message. Let's chat. I work with clients one-on-one and in groups to help you sort of develop the tool belt to then go on and live the rest of your life. So
and that I've had so many people on this podcast that, where we just can't say enough. And I'm sure this is going to resonate with you as well, that it first and foremost starts with your health. When you become healthy, then you can, optimize your your career, your business that you started, or anything of that. And so I love that, you've got both sides of the spectrum, that you can help someone really kind of pull in their own, just gain control of their health. And then once you do that, you have no idea how ridiculously productive you will be, and how much your wheels will turn, and the energy you have to get through long days of creating something that you're really passionate about comes from, because you have helped them with both aspects, which, if you don't sleep well, you're not going to perform well. You don't eat well, you're not going to have the energy to get through your day. And I could go on and on and on, but to be there on both sides of that for somebody, I think is the pinnacle of having a coach in your life.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it. And thanks for having me. Such a blast. We could talk for forever, I think.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. We just might have to do this again and dive a little bit deeper in both of those subjects. But you guys, truly, she's an open book, and feel free to reach out to her, and also to let me know. You can even share in the show notes below in the comment section of what resonated with you the most, because I know you had some aha moments. And when I go to advertise this podcast, mark my words, I'm going to talk about the aha moments that you're going to have, because you, Jen, have a really good way of dumbing it down. It sounds terrible, and I don't mean it that way, but putting things in such simple terms that are you can remember. And I think that is a gift that not very many people have. So that's why it was such a joy to talk to you, and to hear from you, and to hear your side of things, because they were very spot on. So anyway,
thank you so much. Such a pleasure.
Welcome. Hope that we get to continue this friendship, and I hope to see you again on this podcast.
Happily.
I want you guys to know that, of course, M.A.D.E stands for making a difference every day. I want you to wake up feeling prepared, and I want you going to bed feeling proud. Have a great day. Wow, we've reached the end. But before I leave you, I'd love to hear from you. After all, it's not every day that someone reaches out and asks for your opinion. And to me, your opinion does matter. So please share this episode with anyone that you think needs to hear this message. And remember to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. My name is Melissa McAllister. And until next time, thank you for being your own health advocate.